let me talk about the examination skills, how to answer the essay question. So for all the essay question, it will ask you to use the sources to answer, right? And in the sources, one of them probably will include the views of different individuals. Then the first examination skill that you must use, you must remember in your DSE is that you have to respond to each of the view. And I have extracted each of the view here, and let me go through them together with you one by one, and let's see how we can make use of the view to answer the question. So the first one is the railway driver. He says that he has to postpone the retirement to 62. And of course, if people retire later, this will affect two economic variables. Which economic variables will this affect if the people retire later? The first one obviously will be about the unemployment rate. Because if they retire later, and we have an increase in the labor force, we have an increase in the number of unemployed, and this will affect the unemployment rate. The second effect is that if people retire later, that means the full employment output level will be higher, because full employment will also include the people within the age of 50 and also 62 now. Before the change, maybe we just count the number of people up to 50 for the full employment, now up to 62, and this will of course affect the long-run AS and also the potential output level. So this is another variable that you can talk about. Now let me go to the second individual. The second individual is the worker in our food industry. He says that if I can be offered long-term work contract, I will not change my job that often. So changing the job, which concept is it related to? It must be about the labor mobility, the occupational mobility, right? And with the reform on the labor market, they can have the long-term work contract. And that's why they don't need to change the job or occupation that often. And that's why this will lower the occupational mobility of the labor. So this is the effect of the reform on labor market. On the contrary, the reform on the pension system may also affect the occupational mobility. In the past, without the reform, as I've mentioned before, if they have changed their job, they will receive lower pensions after their retirement. Will they dare to change their job? Of course they won't. They won't dare to change their job. They won't want to do so because they will receive a smaller amount of pension after the retirement. In order to get a larger pension, they will stick to one job and keep working, right? And that's why if Macron is going to fix the problem, and even if they have changed their job, they can receive the same amount of pension, then in that case, this will encourage them to find the best job that they want to do. And that's why somehow the reform on the pension system will increase or will raise the occupational mobility. So I do not write down the whole word. So the occupation mobility. And then the second thing you can consider is occupational mobility in your essay. Then the third person is about the government official. Then this is about the government debt. And somehow you have to talk about the fiscal situation of the government. And that's why you can mention something about the fiscal balance. And most probably the unemployment benefit could be reduced, and that's why the fiscal balance could improve. The last one is about the economists. For the economists, he mentioned something about the long-term economic growth. So don't just look at these two words, economic growth, but we have the words long-term here. And that's why you are not going to talk about the output level, the ADAS, then you need to talk about the potential output level and also the long run AS. And somehow you have to talk about the long run AS and the potential output level based on the comment of the economist. And you may wonder why the reform on the labor market can promote the long run AS. And you can actually refer to the other individuals' views as well. So if you look at the other individuals, except the economist, one of them also mentioned the words long term. Which one? Except the economist, we also discovered the words long term before. So where is it? Here, right? So the worker also mentioned about something about the long term. And that's why somehow you have to make use of these comments here to think about how the long run AS could be affected by the reform on labor market. The reform on the labor market will lower the occupational mobility. That means the workers have a higher possibility to keep on working for a certain job. If they continue to work for a certain occupation to a certain job, then of course they will accumulate their human capital, their knowledge, their skills. And somehow, if they can accumulate their human capital, the long run AS can be promoted because of a higher labor productivity. And somehow you can talk about the accumulation of human capital to explain why the long-term economic growth can be promoted. So this is the hint from the views of different individuals.